Did you know you can run Linux Mint right now in your browser without installing anything at all? No USB, no risk, no hassle. You just open a website and within seconds you have a fully functional desktop in front of you. Maybe you're worried you'll break something, or maybe you're simply curious what Linux Mint looks like and want to take a quick peek before deciding whether or not it's worth taking the next step. I'm going to run Linux Mint directly from the browser. No installation, no virtual machines on your computer, nothing to download. Absolutely everything happens online in the browser you already have open right now. The platform we'll be using is called DistroSea.com. It's a website that allows you to run over 60 Linux distributions directly from your browser using virtual machine technology hosted on their servers. Essentially, someone somewhere is running Linux Mint on a server, and you connect to that system through a technology called NoVNC, a web-based VNC client that streams the desktop image to your browser in real time and allows you to interact with it as if you were sitting in front of that computer. Before DistroSea, there was another similar site called distrotest.net, which ran for many years and helped countless users explore Linux. At some point, however, it shut down. DistroSea came to fill that gap, and from what I've observed, it does so even better than its predecessor, both in terms of the variety of distributions available and in terms of constantly being updated with the latest versions. The process is incredibly simple. You open your browser and go to distrosea.com. Once on the site, you'll see a long list of available Linux distributions. You can use the search bar or scroll through the list until you find Linux Mint. You'll notice that Linux Mint appears in several variants. The distribution comes with 3 desktop environments: Cinnamon, which is the most popular and most fully featured; Mate, which is lighter and faster on older systems; and XFCE, which is the lightest of all and ideal for computers with limited resources. On top of these, there is also LMDE, Linux Mint Debian Edition, a special variant based on Debian instead of Ubuntu, which uses Cinnamon as its desktop environment and is aimed at those who want a different foundation under the hood. One very interesting thing about DistroSea is that for the Cinnamon, Mate and XFC variants, you're not limited to just the latest version. You can choose from multiple historical versions of the distribution, starting with Linux Mint 20.2 and going all the way up to the latest 22.3. And LMDE is no exception. Here too you have several versions to choose from, namely LMDE 5, 6 and 7. This is extremely useful if you want to compare how the distribution has evolved over time, or if you need to test an application's compatibility with an older version. For this video, I'll be opening Linux Mint 22.3 Cinnamon, the flagship variant of the distribution, the one the developers themselves recommend for most users. You click on it, wait a few seconds, and that's it. You have a fully functional desktop right in your browser. First impressions matter, and Linux Mint knows this. The desktop is clean, organized, and immediately familiar, even to someone who has used Windows their entire life. You have a taskbar at the bottom of the screen, with the menu in the bottom left corner and the system tray in the bottom right. There's no learning curve just to figure out where things are. You sit down and you already feel at home. The pre-installed applications are generous. You get the full LibreOffice suite, Writer, Calc and Impress, which are the equivalents of Word, Excel and PowerPoint, so you can open and edit documents right away without installing anything extra. You get Firefox for web browsing, Thunderbird for email, Celluloid for media playback, Transmission for torrents, and an intuitive file manager that lets you navigate your files easily. One interesting thing I noticed, there is no password set for the default user account. This means you can use the sudo command without entering any password and can even become root directly. At first glance, this might seem like a security concern, but it actually makes perfect sense in this context. The system is explicitly configured for testing and exploration, not for production use, so the priority is making it as easy as possible for you to poke around and try things without any unnecessary friction. I tested various scenarios, and here's what I found. Web browsing works, but with an important caveat that I'll talk about shortly. Working with files is smooth. You can create documents, edit them, and organize them into folders. LibreOffice works excellently, with no noticeable lag when you're working on a single document. Celluloid runs as well, although larger media files can introduce a few seconds of loading delay. I also tried installing new applications, and surprisingly, that works. You can use the package manager or the terminal to download and install software. I installed a few test applications without any issues. This is truly impressive, especially when you consider that we're basically in a live environment running online. The terminal is fully functional. If you want to learn Linux commands, DistroSea with Linux Mint is an excellent place to experiment without risking anything. You can test commands, edit configuration files, and explore the Linux file system structure, all the essential things you should know if you want to become a competent Linux user. Now let's speak openly about what doesn't work or works less well, because it would be dishonest to sell you only the positive side. Performance is not the same as on a native system. That's understandable. The signal has to make a round trip between your computer and DistroSea's servers, and that inevitably introduces some lag. As long as you're doing simple things, browsing, writing a document, exploring menus, the experience is acceptable. But if you start opening many applications at once or doing heavy multitasking, you'll feel the system becoming slower and less responsive. This is not Linux Mint's fault, but rather the nature of the platform. Internet access inside the system works conditionally. If you want to browse the web from within Linux Mint running in the browser, you'll need to sign in with a Google account. The platform's creators imposed this restriction for security reasons to prevent abuse of outbound connections. If you don't want to use a Google account, you won't be able to access the internet from inside the system. It's an inconvenient compromise, but understandable from the platform operator's perspective. Sound does not work. I tested various audio and video sources, nothing. This is a technical limitation of the platform, not of Linux Mint itself. On a natively installed system, sound works perfectly and without special configuration. Data is not saved between sessions. You're in a live environment, similar to what you get when booting from a USB stick. Once you close the session, everything is gone. Documents you created, applications you installed, settings you changed, all of it disappears. If you want to keep anything, you'll need to transfer the files by other means before closing the session. Your computer's internet connection must be stable. If you have a fluctuating or slow connection, you risk getting disconnected or having an extremely laggy experience. DistroSea works best on a stable broadband connection. You have a few alternatives for testing Linux Mint without a full installation. You can create a bootable USB with Balena Etcher and boot your computer from it. This remains the classic method and offers an experience closer to the real thing. You can use a virtual machine with VirtualBox or VMware, more control and better performance, but it requires downloading an ISO of several gigabytes and setting up the VM. DistroSea clearly wins in terms of convenience and accessibility. 0 downloads, 0 configuration, 0 risk to your existing system. 1 click and in a few seconds you're in Linux Mint. For someone who wants to quickly see what Mint looks like and how it feels before investing time in a proper installation, there's nothing simpler. It's also an excellent educational resource. Teachers, students, anyone who wants to teach or learn Linux without managing local virtual machines, DistroSea simplifies everything. Despite its limitations, DistroSea offers something truly valuable, an authentic window into the world of Linux Mint, accessible to anyone, anytime, with absolutely no technical barriers. It doesn't replace a real installation and it doesn't give you the full experience, but it gives you enough to figure out whether Linux Mint is right for you. And if, after spending a few hours exploring Mint in the browser, you decide you want more, then take the next step. Download the ISO from linuxmint.com, create a bootable USB, boot from it, and install it. You'll discover a stable, elegant, and completely free operating system, one that has convinced many people never to go back to Windows. DistroSea is created and maintained by a small team, funded through donations from Linux enthusiasts. If you like the platform and find it useful, consider supporting them with a small donation. They deserve it. If you have questions about Linux Mint or want to learn more about how to transition from Windows, leave a comment below. Give a like if the video was useful and subscribe for more Linux Mint content. See you next time.